Hello and welcome to my first YouTube video in a long time, and I get a sense that it might be the first of another wave because I love doing them. I love being able to divulge in a topic and give examples and nuances and really kind of go through it. And this video could be distilled to a couple of sentences and give a kind of punchy impact. Yes, and I think that as the listener, YouTube videos give us time, or like longer form videos give us time to sit with, digest, think about how this applies to our life. And I'd say it gives me a more of a feeling of sitting down with a cup of tea, looking at the clouds, compared to drinking your coffee really quickly whilst you're also walking to the station, which would be more like a reel. And both are great, but I'm really leaning into more the slowness, the depth. And so I hope that this, brings you a sense of like patience and a chance to breathe and be with your body as you listen to this and notice what comes up for you and how this applies to you. So what I'm going to talk about, I originally wrote as a blog post for my Substack, and then it just never really felt complete, and I was like, I think I just need to speak this one. So here we go. It's about the importance, I'd say, of loving yourself where you are before trying to make changes in your life. You know, January comes and some people like to do it in March comes, and it's like this goal setting, new me, spring emergence, which is great. And I'm going to talk about why I think the foundation of love and acceptance and compassion for us exactly as we are today is so important before trying to jump in to be our best self or our future self or align with our highest potential. Like, of course we all have so much more that we could do, and so much more that we know would be fulfilling for us and rewarding if we put more effort and time in. And still we find ourselves maybe not doing those things. And I'm not saying that trying to be your best self is a bad thing. I think it's an amazing thing. It's actually one of the things, like, I'm not a religious person, or I don't adhere to any particular religion, but it is one of the things that I love about religions is this kind of drive to be a virtuous person. And I think where it's problematic is obviously each religion has its own dogma around what it is to be a good person, and people can take that as orthodoxically, if that's a word, as they like. And the way that inspires me is me taking, or me tuning in with my own values and like North Stars to direct me in life. And where that can cause problems is if we are skipping, like trying to be our fullest potential from a place of criticism. Like we can find drive, or at least some people can. I'm not so good at it. I'm not very good at being told what to do, even if it's from myself. But some people really succeed externally from this kind of military style discipline, and they just go, and it's often coming from a place of I need to prove myself, to my parents, to the world. Some sort of insecurity and self-judgment is driving them to perform and find their version of success, which can work. And we see it work in so many people in the world. And I don't know how pleasant of an experience that is for someone if they're constantly chasing this dangling carrot. Like, there's people that have way more money than you and still don't feel like they have enough and still feel empty inside. So there's a difference between, you know, that, say that stereotype of that guy. He's got no self-esteem, So he has kind of forced himself to make lots of money, drive a big fast car, and has big muscles. And you can still feel that there's like such a lack of confidence compared to a man that is full of self-esteem and also happens to like fast cars and likes making money and likes going to the gym, but it's coming from a place of fullness rather than overcompensating for what's not happening inside. And it's kind of the difference between going to the gym because you're looking in the mirror and saying you need to lose weight, otherwise no one's ever going to love you, compared to I love you so much and I want to look after you and do the best for you, so I'm going to go to the gym and work out. And both can work, but the latter, I think, is way more sustainable. It's kind of the essence of building this foundation within us, filling it with so much love so that everything else is growing from that, rather than trying to build a house and the foundation is rotten and eventually it's going to collapse in on itself. Like, we can set these goals and say, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym every day. But if it's not coming from a natural kind of organic internal drive, it's much more likely to fall in on itself, which is where we get into the habit of setting goals and then not sticking to them and then feeling disappointed and resentful and criticizing ourselves and saying we're never going to amount to anything, when that's not actually what's happening. There's always something deeper that's happening when we're trying to do the things that we want to do on one part and the other side we don't. So I'll talk about that a bit later, but yeah, constantly idealizing this future version of ourselves is somewhat perpetuating the message that we're not okay as we are, which most of us received as children in one form or another from our parents, from teachers, from society, that we need to be something different to be loved, to be accepted, to belong. So these are all very primal drives and very safety related, which is why this is a lot about your nervous system, like tending to it. So yeah, we're saying when we get to be that future self, when we reach our full potential, then we will be loved and accepted. And I know that this is not this is not encompassing all of what the people that talk about being your best self are saying. But sometimes I think we can fall into this kind of misunderstanding of it or misdirection of it. So yeah, so striving is not bad. Striving is beautiful. We want to put in hard work and effort and really be able to deal with uncomfortable situations that in the long run will pay off or at least feel rewarding. And yeah, I think where it becomes damaging is where it's like, I would be a better person if it's like taking us away, saying when we get there, and we'll never get there. We're always here. We can strive for more forever until we can feel really content in ourselves now. There's going to be this nagging emptiness that's never going to be filled, which is basically addictions. And so yeah, so in my life I have changed so many things about like the way I live, my behaviours, my habits, my lifestyle, and I tried time and time again to do it by force, and it just never worked. Like, I would say it every day, I'd be like, today's a day, and then you get into that cycle, you're like, okay. So rather than try to force yourself to make changes, look at what is pulling you away from that. So if you're saying, oh, I want to stop drinking alcohol, and then you keep finding yourself drinking again, ask yourself, do I actually want this? Do I actually want to stop? Because sometimes we think that we should want these things and actually we don't. And if we're not ready, if we don't really truly willing, it's just like running backwards on up an escalator. So look into the desires and the different drives, because there's usually going to be two opposing forces. We do and we don't. But whichever one is stronger is going to win. So until the don't is actually stronger, usually it's easier just to save yourself the push and pull. That's in my experience. Again, some people do prefer or do benefit from this more military style. And I do prefer kind of cold turkey with things. I'm a kind of all or nothing, so it is easier for me to just cut things out. But it was not working to cut them out before I really actually wanted to. And you need to look at what is... So when I say I wake up and I've said I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to. What is that force that's pulling you away? What is the force that has had me procrastinate making this video for so many days? And then I can have voices like, oh, because I'm lazy, I'm unmotivated, la la la. But actually, if I can understand myself better, then I can start to look at what's really happening. So there's kind of two levels to it. There's the mental understanding, like, okay, this and this has happened in my life and has led me to where I am today, and is why I'm making these decisions. And that's not to make excuses or to kind of what's that word? Kind of make I don't know what the word is, but like make up for us just being mean, especially if it's like hurting other people. It's not to excuse ourselves, but it is to forgive and accept, to understand, okay, I'm a human, this has happened, it's understandable that now this is what I'm choosing to do. It's okay that I am choosing to escape from this pain and this discomfort that I do not want to feel. I think that, especially with drugs and alcohol, obviously they can be so destructive, but they are also... There's like a wisdom in that medicine that just allows us to numb from the pain until we are ready to face it. And that's, I think, part of the readiness that I was speaking about before. We need to be ready to feel these things because it is hard to make big life changes. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to override things, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Like, you still have to put in effort. There's still going to be loads of discomfort. And part of it is learning to increase or practicing increasing your capacity to feel and to be with those uncomfortable, painful feelings. Because when the body is feeling too much, it can be very stressful. And when we're stressed, we can go into fight or flight or freeze and fawn. So fight could be us, starting an argument with someone that we love and then being like, oh, why did I do that again? Flight could be just leaving a situation or wanting to drink so that you can numb yourself out. When we procrastinate by looking at our phones for too long, we're frozen. We want to just shut off, and that allows us to do that. So if we can have understanding that that's actually what's happening, this is all just coping mechanisms, trauma responses, learned behaviours. So when we can see them as that rather than calling ourselves names, lazy, useless, whatever, then we can have compassion, we can have understanding, we can have acceptance. So that's kind of the mental part. That would be the equivalent of going to see a talk therapist. And then the second part, which is more the work that I do with my clients, is the feelings. So, okay, we can understand that maybe we're avoiding this task because it feels stressful and the body has shut down. Why? What does it not want to feel? Where can we let ourselves feel slightly more? When a craving arises, can we sit with that feeling and know that it's okay, that we can be in that? And embodiment helped me so much with cravings because it was like, okay, this thing, I'm okay in this. I can hold myself through it. just feelings. And I don't want to say just feelings because I know a lot of the time they can feel huge, like they're a huge part of our experience, which is why we spend so much energy trying to avoid certain feelings, because they can be so intense. And the practice is leaning into them, finding safety in them, being able to ground yourself through them. And also, the more that we start to love ourselves through understanding, through presence, because presence is a massive form of love, we can be present with ourselves, then the internal connection and that drive starts to, at least in my experience, starts to overtake the one that wants to go away. So the drive to be our quote unquote best self starts to feel natural. It's a natural blooming of who we are rather than an avoidance. And there's a huge difference between doing something because we are avoiding something else and doing it because we want to. And doing something to avoid is basically all addictions. And doing something because we want to is basically us living in truth and alignment. And it's not linear, and it can be complicated. And I think the most important thing is always just to go easy on yourself. Like, we are constantly changing, so much so that we actually sometimes don't need to try as hard. Have you ever found it where you're like, oh wow, I just don't do that thing anymore. I don't have to hype myself up to go to the gym. I just want to because I enjoy looking after my body. I enjoy the feeling that it gives me during and after. And yeah, I guess the essence of all of this is we can make change from a place of rejection, or we can make change from a place of acceptance. So the more that we can really tune in with ourselves and show us love today, and know that we are, sounds a bit cringe to say, but like, we are perfect as we are today, then there's less stress on the body. And when we're less stressed, there's less to avoid, and we can do our thing more naturally. So yeah, so it's basically just a process of inquiry. What's happening here? What can this avoidance tell me? What is this part of afraid of? Usually it's just a fear. What does she want? What's happening here? And then also doing that on a somatic level. So like in the feelings, in the sensations, and really physically, mentally, emotionally showing yourself love. And then empowered choice occurs organically. And then it's coming from natural desire rather than opinionated manipulation of what I should be doing. It's kind of the difference between, being on the dance floor and dancing because somebody's told you have to be there, and you're like, it's kind of like dragging yourself through mud, versus those times when we're just there and there's nothing in this world that has taken me off this dance floor right now. Like, we all know the difference and how much better the latter one feels. And again, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy. I'm not saying love yourself where you are, be content, a kind of stagnant place, or like excusing unfair behaviours. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful in some way. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. If you have comments, questions, thoughts, I love to hear. I love to keep these channels, these social media channels, engaged. So you actually know we are real humans here. It might be quite disconnected because it's through a screen, but we are actually human to human. And also, obviously, it's YouTube. You can like and subscribe, and I think that's it. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you enjoyed.